I never thought I would become the kind of woman who followed her husband. I used to believe that trust was the foundation of love. That if you chose the right person, you wouldn't need to question their every move. I used to hear stories about women checking phones, tracking locations, or following their partners at night, and I would shake my head, thinking, if you have to do that, the relationship is already broken. But that was before Daniel changed. Before the late nights. Before the silence. Before the feeling that something in my life was slowly slipping out of my hands, and I didn't even know what it was. At first, it was small things. Things you could easily ignore if you wanted to. Daniel started coming home later than usual. Not once or twice, but almost every night. He always had an explanation. Work had been overwhelming. A new client needed extra attention. His boss was putting pressure on him. And I believed him. Because I trusted him. Because I loved him. Because I never imagined I would have a reason not to. But then came the phone calls. He would step outside to take them. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe he didn't want to disturb me. Maybe it was work-related. But one night, I followed him quietly to the hallway. He didn't know I was there. And I heard it. Not what he said. But how he said it. His voice was softer. Warmer. Almost intimate. It wasn't the way he spoke to his boss. Or his colleagues. Or even me. That was the first crack. The first moment where doubt entered my mind and refused to leave. After that, everything felt different. The way he avoided eye contact sometimes. The way he smiled at his phone. The way he seemed distracted. Like a part of him was always somewhere else. I tried to ignore it. I told myself I was imagining things. That I was overthinking. That relationships go through phases, and this was just one of them. But deep down, I knew. Something wasn't right. And the worst part was, I didn't know what. One night, I finally asked him. Are you okay? I said gently. He looked at me, surprised. Of course. Why wouldn't I be? I hesitated. Because I didn't know how to explain it. I don't know, I said. You just feel distant. He smiled. Too quickly. I'm just tired, he said. Work's been crazy. That should have been enough. But it wasn't. Because when I looked into his eyes, I didn't see exhaustion. I saw something else. Something he wasn't telling me. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to his breathing beside me. And for the first time in our marriage, I felt like I didn't know the man lying next to me. Days passed. Then weeks. And the feeling only grew stronger. Until one night, I made a decision that would change everything. Daniel told me he had to work late again. Big deadline, he said, grabbing his keys. Don't wait up. I nodded. Smiled. Acted like everything was normal. But the moment he walked out the door, something inside me snapped. I waited. 1 minute. 2 minutes. 5. Then I grabbed my coat and my keys. And followed him. My hands were shaking as I got into my car. My heart was racing so fast it felt like it might explode. I kept asking myself what I was doing. What I expected to find. What I would do if my fears were true. But I couldn't stop. Not anymore. I stayed a few cars behind him, careful not to get too close. Every turn he made, I followed. Every stoplight, every lane change, I mirrored him, trying to stay invisible. And then, he didn't go to his office. He drove right past it. My stomach dropped. A cold wave of dread washed over me as I continued following him into an unfamiliar part of the city. The streets grew quieter, darker, more isolated. Finally, he slowed down and parked in front of a small house. I pulled over a few houses away, turning off my headlights. From where I sat, I could see everything. He stepped out of the car, walked up to the door, knocked, and then, the door opened. A woman stood there. She wasn't what I expected. She was simple, ordinary. No dramatic beauty. No obvious reason for him to choose her over me. But the way she looked at him. It wasn't casual. It wasn't distant. It was familiar. Warm. Like she knew him. Like she belonged with him. My chest tightened. But before I could process it, a little girl ran out from behind her. She couldn't have been older than 5. She ran straight into Daniel's arms and wrapped herself around him. Daddy. The word echoed in my head. Over. And over. And over again. I froze. Completely. Everything inside me went numb. I watched as he lifted her up, smiling in a way I hadn't seen in months. She laughed. He laughed. And the woman stood there, watching them like this was normal. Like this was their life. Their family. My vision blurred with tears. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. I couldn't move. All I could do was sit there and watch my world fall apart. Eventually, he carried the little girl inside. The woman followed. And the door closed behind them, leaving me alone in the dark. I don't remember how I got home that night. I don't remember the drive. I don't remember unlocking the door. All I remember is the silence. The emptiness. The feeling that everything I believed in had just been ripped away. I didn't sleep. Not that night. Not the next. My mind kept replaying the same moment. Daddy. That single word destroyed everything. Days passed before I confronted him. I needed time. Time to process. Time to understand. Time to decide what I was going to do. Because once I said it out loud, there would be no going back. Finally, one evening, I couldn't take it anymore. He walked through the door like nothing had happened. Like everything was normal. And I realized I couldn't pretend anymore. Where were you? I asked. He paused. Just for a second. But I saw it. At work, he said. The lie came too easily. I followed you, I said. Silence. Heavy. Unavoidable. His face went pale. What? I saw everything, I continued. The house. The woman. The little girl. He didn't deny it. Didn't even try. And she called you Daddy, I whispered. He closed his eyes for a moment. Then opened them. And said quietly. She's my daughter. The world tilted. My, what? My daughter, he repeated. How? I asked, my voice shaking. It was before you, he said. Years ago. I didn't know about her. I stared at him, trying to make sense of it. But she knows you, I said. She ran to you. She called you daddy. I found out a few months ago, he admitted. A few months ago? I repeated. And you didn't tell me? I didn't know how, he said. Anger surged through me. So instead, you lied? You built another life behind my back? I had to, he said. She's my child. And what am I? I shot back. Your secret? He didn't answer. And that silence told me everything. Tears streamed down my face. I don't even know who you are anymore. He looked at me, his voice softer now. There's something else, he said. My heart sank. What? He hesitated. Then spoke. The woman, her name is Emily. I waited. And? She's sick. The words caught me off guard. What? She's been sick for a long time, he continued. That's why she contacted me. She needed help. I frowned. What kind of help? He swallowed. She's dying. The room went completely still. What are you saying? She doesn't have much time left, he said. And she wanted our daughter to know me, before it's too late. The anger inside me wavered. Confusion replaced it. Shock. So all this time, I said slowly, you weren't just cheating? No, he said firmly. I would never do that to you. But you still lied. I know, he said. And I'm sorry. I turned away, my mind spinning. Everything I thought I knew was changing. But it still didn't make sense. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. Because I was afraid, he admitted. Of what? Of losing you. That hurt more than I expected. Daniel, I said, my voice breaking, you might have lost me anyway. He stepped closer. I didn't want to bring this into our life, he said. I didn't want to hurt you. But you did, I whispered. Silence filled the room again. But this time, it felt different. Not just heavy. Complicated. Real. Because now, it wasn't just betrayal. It was something else. Something harder to face. The truth. Days later, I went back to that house. Alone. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to see it again. To understand. To accept. I knocked on the door. And when it opened, the woman was standing there. Emily. She looked weaker than before. Pale. Fragile. But her eyes were kind. You must be her, she said softly. I froze. You know who I am? She nodded. He told me about you. I didn't know what to say. So I just stood there. Until she stepped aside. Do you want to come in? I hesitated. Then nodded. Inside, the house felt warm. Lived in. Full of memories. And then I saw her. The little girl. She looked up at me with curious eyes. And smiled. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. Because she wasn't a secret. She wasn't a lie. She was just a child. An innocent part of a story none of us chose. Emily sat down slowly, clearly in pain. I didn't mean to destroy your life, she said. I looked at her. You didn't, I replied. Then who did? She asked gently. I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. Maybe it wasn't about blame. Maybe it was about choices. And consequences. And the messy, complicated truth of life. Weeks passed. And everything changed. Not overnight. Not easily. But slowly. I started visiting more often. At first, it was awkward. Painful. Confusing. But over time, it became something else. Something unexpected. Connection. Understanding. And one day, Emily looked at me and said something I will never forget. Will you take care of her when I'm gone? I felt my heart stop. I don't know if I can, I whispered. You can, she said. Because you already care. I looked at the little girl. At her smile. At her innocence. And I realized. She wasn't the reason my life fell apart. She was the reason it might come back together. In a different way. A harder way. But maybe, a stronger one. Months later. Emily passed away. Quietly. Peacefully. And at the funeral, I stood beside Daniel. And his daughter. Our daughter. Because somewhere along the way, without even realizing it, she had become a part of me too. And as I held her hand, I understood something I never thought I would. Love isn't always simple. It isn't always fair. It isn't always what you expect. But sometimes, it finds a way to grow, even in the most broken places. And sometimes, the truth that destroys you is also the one that rebuilds you.